Welcome to our monthly webinar, typically DALiM tips and tricks that we're going to kind of turn into a worldwide technology meeting recap. Since basically what we'll do is cover a lot of the features. Let's see if you're seeing me yet. Sorry. Yep, make sure you're seeing me. Hopefully you should be seeing my screen now. And basically we're going to cover a bunch of the things that DALiM went over during the 2 days of the worldwide technology meeting, and kind of touch your interest, get some feedback as time goes by. And those of you attending Duo, you'll see some of these features already popping up by the time Duo comes, or maybe get real ETAs on some of the features. Most of this we don't have ETAs for. They typically don't do that at the technology meeting unless they're pretty coming up pretty soon. So let me go ahead and start presenting. Hopefully I don't lose the screen here. But first of all, as you know, most of you have already been on our webinars. If you need to zoom the screen up or anything, you have controls in the top left to allow you to do that, as well as you can put any questions into the control panel for GoToMeeting, and we'll see those. I'll go ahead and answer those at the end, or if I see something that's interesting while I'm talking about it, I'll try to cover that as well while I'm talking about it. So just to kind of go over, the technology meetings held first week of December every year in Kiel, Germany, or near Kiel, Germany, which is across the border from Strasbourg, France, which has a beautiful Christmas village. They do near the cathedral. Always time for good food. Great time to get with people from all over the world and talk about how we're using the solutions, ideas. DALiM does a great job of really opening up conversation between everyone and getting everyone talking about the product, or what's needed, what's lacking in the products, things like that. A lot of time for talking with a lot of people from companies. This year, they actually, Carol managed to get the BMW dealership to have an i8 there for us to drive for some reason, and got to have a lot of fun driving that. I had to mention that because that was a lot of fun. So we're going to go over today a bit of a ES roadmap, some of the new features coming into ES, a new project called Sunrise, which we'll see in a little bit. It'll actually possibly take care of some of the bottlenecks in ES and allow a lot more functionality in ES with the browser. We'll go over our Dialog Engine roadmap as well as a bit of a twist roadmap as well. Most of this is all features that they're hoping they have available before next year's Worldwide Technology Meeting. So some of this will be in 4.5 or 4X. Some of it will be in ES5, released later next year or the following year. So on the ES side, the first thing I talked about is basically they're getting a lot of feedback from customers, and a lot of customers want to turn to ES or are using ES in a SaaS-like environment. They have several customers using ES, and as we all know, it's always been difficult to really filter what they see sometimes. So start of that is you'll actually be able to use the configuration to allow specific users under a profile to have specific taxonomies, facets, or filters. Excuse me. So that'll be nice because if we have, for instance, in this scenario here, we have a user logging in. His profile allows him to see the car taxonomy. Another user that logs in, their profile only allows them to see the soccer or the sports taxonomy. So no longer do you have to worry about, if I create a taxonomy that fulfills the need for one given customer, every customer I have that uses it, or every user has access to it or has to deal with that. Or if I'm using multiple taxonomies, everyone's seeing all of them, even though they're irrelevant to them. So we'll now be able to do that. So that's going to be a nice addition, and this seemed like something that would be probably mid-year of next year, to something that they were pretty close to having in the product. To go with that, they're also adding an object called categories, which at first will be for workflows and metadata. But basically to allow us to create, they call it a category, but it basically amounts to a subfolder. So you can create a folder under like your workflow creation area that will allow you to again, using rules, define who has access to those workflows. So you'll be able to have the same workflow could be linked into multiple subfolders or multiple categories, as they call them, but you'll be able to go into customer area and give rights to whether they have access to see it, possibly read only so they can see the workflows but can't edit them. And that'll actually flow over to the workflows they choose and things like their job ticket, for instance. So not only is it for the editing side, on the administrative side, that you may limit them from seeing, but if you give them access to the project ticket, and they sometimes need to change their document workflow, now instead of seeing every workflow in the ES system, they'll only have the ability to see the ones you want them to see. And I see I'm already getting comments on that. Hooray from someone. So currently, what's going to be in the product pretty soon is that to be, the categories to work for workflows, metadata sets. As the year goes by, you'll see that going into smart views, milestones, trigger sets, which we'll cover later, user actions, parameter sets, color, and you'll see all the different things in there. So this is going to be a nice addition, from what we saw and what the reaction was in the room to it, to finally be able to filter some of the information away from other customers or other users. Excuse me for the cough every now and then. I also brought back a cold from Germany. So something new that they're going to have is now going to be a metadata set that's called a calculated field, or can be built from a calculated field. So you'll be able to have a piece of metadata that's calculated from the results of either other metadata fields or other entries inside of the system. So for instance, it would just be a script like this that basically just does multiplication between the height and width to get the kind of the surface area of something. So just giving us a little bit more possibility of things to do with our job tickets and with creation of metadata. Something that a lot of people seem to like as well, and I was one of them, was the ability to now create projects on a file system. So based on your project templates, you'll no longer be confined to having to have their files inside of the ES file system or ES directory structure. You'll actually be able to point them out to a separate file system or a separate folder structure on your system and have all the projects for a given customer stored where you want them. There was a lot of questions on this, and I had a few based on needs I know some of my customers have, where we want them to start calculating the amount of data being consumed by those projects and displaying that in the interface, or giving us a way to cap how much storage space they're taking. Since they're moving this way, we know that they're doing this because of a request like that. They did take note of that. They hadn't thought to do that necessarily, but they do have a way, since they do file system monitoring anyway, they have a way to be able to get that information. They should be able to incorporate that in. But this will be the first step, and at least we'll be able to put those on separate file systems or whatever our needs are, which is going to be pretty nice. There's going to be a new ES component that you can add to a job ticket or anything you need, which is going to be basically a page composer. Those of you who are familiar with Mistral, for instance, there was a page composer in Mistral that allowed to crop pages or allowed for, in Mistral, ad stitching. The ad stitching part won't be available in ES, at least not anytime soon. But this will at least allow you, from a job ticket that you could put like in the properties area of a file, allow you to change the crop box on a file, then have a tool that will work on that information and recrop the file. So that'll be a little HTML GUI, similar to what we're seeing right here. And this is actually a function of Dialog Engine. I'll cover that later. So Dialog Engine API should have this available to call up as well. Another Mistral type feature is now there's going to be the ability to basically right-click on an empty slot on the ES flat plan and upload a file directly to that spot. Currently, you would have to have something registered there, whether you created that via JDF or something like that, or there's a page already that exists there. You can upload a file on it, but you could never do it on an empty slot. Now, the empty slot you'll be able to upload to, and it's kind of similar to a Mistral function. Excuse me again. So one of the new features that a lot of our asset management customers or legacy asset management customers that are trying to move off of some asset management systems, they want to move to ES and really use as an asset management system. They were very excited about this. Is basically triggers. DALiM basically is creating a thing that'll do a trigger set, which is the ability to create a bunch of triggers under a specific thing, and then a trigger will just be a way to define an action that can happen based on another event actually happening. So if it's a piece of metadata changes, the ability to do a condition where based on that metadata changing or that metadata and another condition changing, something else happens, whether it's even if it's like a wait event that needs to be triggered, or it triggers other files to do something. All that will be able to be scripted inside of the actions, inside of ES, and take care of that. Okay. These requests have been around for a while from our asset management customers, and they'll finally have it fulfilled here in typical DALiM fashion. They really have done a nice job with it, it looks like, and it's going to be pretty powerful. You have and or statements, things like that. Don't have too much to show on a slide from a slide perspective on this because this was kind of a live demo. But ES even currently supports Collada 3D files, including those that are zipped archived. Basically, right now, if you have a Collada file inside of ES, you can open it up, and it's a kind of a strange GUI, and I think you can put an annotation on it. But what's coming next year is you'll actually be able to open up those Collada files in what really looks like the dialog that we're used to, the HTML5 version, and you can actually place annotations on the model in the 3D space. So the annotation will stick along the tires of the car, for instance, and will only be able to be placed on the object. You can rotate it, put one underneath if you had annotation, a comment to make about details underneath the car, something like that. You'll be able to do all that. It was a pretty interesting demo, and they had a few sample models and stuff that kind of choked my ES. That's why I didn't have a screenshot of it, because they had an i8 that was quite complex. My ES really couldn't handle it too well since it's not running on a very big server right now. But this was interesting. They're getting aligned to that, and I should talk a little bit more about 3D later on. Another big hit with the group that was there was relationships are coming, really taking us more into the content management world. So basically links from an asset to another will be tracked, whether it's a reference derived from a copy or custom. Mike, I don't know if you got what the custom was. I really didn't get what the custom ones would be, but the other three made sense to me. These are basically based on document UUID or an instance UUID inside of the file. Typically, most files that come into ES will have it. If they don't, ES will have the ability to auto-generate it, add it to the metadata of the file. But basically, so even an InDesign file that's brought into the system, excuse me, will have references to the files that are placed in it based on the document UUID, sorry. And those will come in, and all the images that are placed in the InDesign page will be references of that InDesign page. Sorry. Any PDF file that's created from the InDesign file will be derived from that InDesign file. So you have all these relationships built up of derived from. If you make a copy of an image, it'll be a copy of. If you make another version of it, it'll be derived from. All those relationships will be tracked in a GUI like this. They're not sure this is going to be the final GUI, but it'll be something like this where you open up the properties of a file, and you'll see all the files that are referenced from it and all the files that have been derived from it, or that it's been derived from. Excuse me again. So you'll be able to do things like change status of different files based on a reference file changing. So maybe the InDesign page doesn't move on to the next milestone until all the images have been retouched and okayed. that are placed in it. You can open up InDesign page inside of Dialog, and it automatically will open up all the files that are linked to it inside of the Dialog Engine. A warning if you delete a file that it's referenced somewhere. And they're really looking for more input into that. Anything that's needed, anything you may want to do beyond that, they're looking for what they could do with this. But this would be a nice addition. I'm sorry for continued coughing. A big thing that they talked about, kind of surprised everybody with, was now they're going to be supporting CMIS API with ES. So CMIS is Content Management Interoperability Services. So basically it'll talk with any other CMIS system. So you'll be able to do things with Drupal, WordPress, anything like that, actually publish content out of ES straight to those kind of systems, or talk to other things like possibly Dropbox, Adobe Drive. All those pieces will become open to ES and being able to be used with ES as you might be used to with any other, like a full content management system, or things like Woodwing Enterprise, Elvis, products like that that already use these standards. You'll have a lot of those functionalities, including ability to do a full check-in and check-out with the built-in connection to CMIS systems from InDesign. So again, CMIS is a standard maintained by Oasis, and it's used for things like SharePoint, a lot of different products like that. See some of these listed here. And it's basically just a new API supported by ES. There's a SOAP available, a RESTful Atom Pub API, as well as JSON that are all supported with it, with all kinds of services and languages available for writing code with it. Again, being able to do Adobe Drive, being able to have versioning via check-in and check-out from the Creative Cloud products. Okay, so that was pretty much it for ES. And now, so moving on to Dialog. So we're kind of used to what the Dialog HTML5 interface looks like today. If you notice, this one here has actually got a couple of new features on the top right that you may see. Specifically PDF layers. So HTML5 very soon will be supporting PDF layers, as well as Photoshop layers, and things like that. So those will be supported by that Dialog at the top right. One of the things they talked about is being able to take the Dialog Engine, and since we basically can make a tool out of it, they're going to use it more for our smart views inside of ES. So if we look at here, and I should have a video part here, you'll actually see that this smart view, that top view that we're used to, it looks like what you're used to seeing today, is actually a Dialog view. So within the ES interface, you'll be able to zoom in, zoom out, and soft proof without jumping necessarily into the full ES interface, a full Dialog interface. You'll be able to do it in any of your smart views and build the views as you want. So you see here they actually have side by side of two different documents and zooming in into them separately. And what they'll do with that is they'll actually, as well as be able to use those as your actions, the way you build a smart view today, and take the tools that exist for Dialog Engine, the annotation, text extraction, all that, you'll be able to add it to your smart view. So whatever functions you want in that view inside of ES, they'll just basically be tools that you add to your interface, build it however you want to look inside of ES. I thought that was a pretty nice one. And you'll also be able to create a job ticket with it. So here you go in the Properties menu. This is a Dialog view of the file. Instead of having to jump into Dialog Engine, you just, in your Properties, one of the tabs is a Dialog view. And this would be like a page composer type functionality they're doing here, where we're trimming the file. This was just a little view they showed to actually show that traditionally you've only been able to call the Dialog Engine as a GUI, as a full GUI, giving you everything. This is what they're using to do what we just showed, which is basically be able to, inside of 4 different divs inside of the web interface here, is called Dialog Engine to just give me the image, and I'll add my tools. So if you want to build your own custom Dialog Engine, this is something that we've actually done with Virtual Publisher a while back, where we just called the images out from underneath Dialog Engine using its color engine, its rendering capabilities to give us our previews, and we added our own annotation tools because we have a different way of doing things. So in the short term, things that we're going to be seeing added to the HTML5 version of Dialog Engine is rotation, ink consumption. They're going to be providing samples of the SDK for those who want to build things, and also the compare offset functionality as well as proofreading marks. So it's just in the short term things that are coming soon. Then in the long term, things that will be added is note attachment, so being able to take an attachment and make a note of it, whether it's an Excel file, Word file, whatever it is. Enrichment special view, I didn't necessarily understand what that was, but just a way to enrich files, I believe, inside HTML5. Translation management, so that's something that's coming in the Java version very soon. Actually, it's available now in the Java version via licensing, sorry, but it'll be in HTML5 soon. Closed loop calibration, which we'll talk about how they're going to do this in a little while. And the iPad special view, which is kind of like the flipbook type function inside the HTML5, I believe. So now talk about Twist, and I might be running a little bit late, but we should get through this fine. So connectivity. First of all, those of you, I'm not sure how many of you actually play with the plugin for InDesign or Creative Suite for from DALiM, but the newest version of the plugin actually now supports full login via web link, so that you have any workflow filtering, anything like that, that's honored, and you'll only see the workflows if somebody wants to see through it. They support CS5 through CC 2014 with the plugin, and it's actually a pretty nice feature, and they're actually doing a little bit more stuff with this, because what they've done is actually taken this. You have ability with their plugin to change the quality or the resolution of the preview that InDesign's including with the file. So if you're making a PDF, you can include an InDesign preview inside the XMP data. And actually, if you do it to correct resolution, you can use that image for like compare functionalities or visual compare type workflow. So you can compare against what InDesign basically thought the file looked like, instead of having to re-rasterize a file inside of Twist separately. There's a new function being added to the pre-flighting of Twist, which will allow you basically to pre-flight and fix certain functions. So if you find a pre-flight problem, then be able to do like a force overprint on a certain color, or change certain aspects of the file based on what the pre-flight results are. Those are actions. They've been available for a while, but now they're allowing us to do those based on pre-flight results. As they typically do, they're continually improving things like flattening, handling of complex vector pages, trapping, and they've now taken the DScreen tool, which I know a lot of our customers have had interest in using, but has always been kind of dreadfully slow on a large plate file, and they've actually allowed parallelization of those processes, so it'll work, take up 4 separate CPUs, and it should increase the speed of using it tremendously. On the image side, full support of Photoshop PSD files, read and write, process them directly, includes the layer support, generation of PNG files, which people have asked for quite some time. They are doing a lot more improvements on the CT vector format, which they've done a great job with over the past few months. We have great results with that format for digital edition content, but you can now do it where it's not just an RGB mode. The all-in-one tool, what they were talking about, is basically at Duo they had shown a workflow where in order to embed an output intent, you had to do it through 2 steps, basically doing a PDF that was a CT vector PDF, and then a separate PDFX with an output intent. That is all being done with one output PDF now. And pretty much they can handle all of it through an output PDF and what it looked like, even the color conversion, because traditionally in our workflows we've always done a PS check for the conversion of CMYK to RGB. I still need to do testing on that to really prove that out, because I'm happy with the color we get from our workflow that we typically recommend, but we'll do some testing and let you know how it goes with this. A big thing, and I think they touched on this before, but they do now have a working Twist Editor application that will be coming out soon. So this will be a downloadable from your Twist server application that installs a full application on your Mac or PC. Work with Twist and will not require the Java Web Start stuff that's been such a pain for all of us the last couple of years. So it'll check compatibility with the Twist systems that it's connecting to. You pull it from that server and you'll be up and running. Looks and feels from what we saw, same as the Java Web Start. You know, it's still Java, but it's an application, so you don't have all the security issues with it. Inside of Merge XP, there's going to be a new function. I believe this is going to be licensed, but I'm not positive. That's basically a barcode creation. So it creates 84 different types of barcodes, including QR codes. It creates them as vector files, so it's high quality, and basically use it either to make a individual barcode for use or to actually add it to a given page, for those of you who are familiar with Merge XP and how you can use it. Something they talked about a good bit at the show is actually SVG output. So there will be a tool inside of Twist to do SVG output from your files. They're doing it based on PDFCT vector algorithm. So since they're already re-rasterizing the file down and flattening, simplifying the file, creating an SVG file of that is much simpler for them, which is great, because that's actually something I played with and was having trouble with some other tools. So I'm looking forward to playing with that. On the e-publication side, they're going to support the .folio file creation through a Twist tool. So you'll be able to run it in and either with enrichment or not, create a .folio of your files in a fixed layout. They also are improving the EPUB3 and DVL files. They're actually going to create those using SVG instead of what they've been doing on the CT vector side or before JPEG. So they'll use their SVG format to do that, and I think that's why they've put so much emphasis on that. On the multimedia side, file check will now get video information, so I'll get metadata out of the video, size, things like that. They're going to be supporting different transcoding. They really didn't show this, but they talked about it just a little bit inside of Twist, and actually do 3D file format conversion, so which is interesting, creating STL files for 3D printers and things like that out of Collada files. Again, they didn't demo this specifically, they just talked about it quickly. Now, getting rid of Java applets. We've already talked about the Twist editor and it going away. But basically, you know, they've also done a lot of work to go HTML5 on the uploader, Dialog Engine, Page Composer, but they've basically been roadblocked by doing color management and the check-in and check-out type functionality. So they were kind of limited in what a browser could actually do without having Java for it. So what they've created was, and I'm showing you this, called Project Sunrise. Since they did, that name is changing. They found out there's another product with almost an identical logo. That's a calendar event that Mr. Graham found that has the same name. So the name will change. It was just a code name anyway. But basically what Project Sunrise is to them is a local application installed on your Mac or your PC from client side that the browser will talk to and can use to do certain functions. So it runs as a daemon. It's got really no interface on the Mac right now unless they decide to change that based on some comments at the meeting. It's cross-platform, cross-navigator or web browser format, and just allows any of the DALiM tools to talk to it, basically. The thing is very reliable, will auto-update by itself based on the server it's connected to. It runs as a logged-in user, and they say it's very lightweight. I mean, if you look at specs here, 10 megabytes on disk, 2 megabytes on disk, 10 megs of RAM, and 0 CPU when it's not doing anything. And it is optional, something you may choose to use. So again, it's a way for ES to ask the browsers to do something from your machine. So from that, they'll be able to do the closed loop calibration. So they can run their code and not have to rely on the browser to execute it. So launch calibration, it'll communicate with your devices and retrieve and upload the actual monitor profiles from the Mac itself. It'll be able to do file streaming. So now those of you who are used to selecting a bunch of files inside of ES and downloading them, ES has to go and zip those, and then you have the download that occurs after the zip. Can slow it down somewhat, and it actually slows up your browser as well. Now it'll actually just do all the files you select one at a time down to your workstation in the background, and they just show up and are accessible as soon as you need them. They'll also be able to do a synchronized folder structure. It's almost like a Dropbox type feature where you can subscribe to a folder and it'll always keep that one synced. Hello? Yeah. Sorry. Okay. And then also you'll be able to use the CMIS functions to go even further beyond that. WebLink will also be able to take advantage of it. So you can be able to take a twist hot folder and make that twist hot folder local on your desktop, drop files into it, and it'll feed the twist server. The results can come back automatically to another folder on your machine. So they're looking to get any suggestions possible on what else they can do with this. And that's most of the functions. That's a lot of what they covered. There was a lot more by trying to take a bit of what they had, put it into a presentation, just kind of cover it, kind of pique your interest and get everybody interested in maybe attending these type of events. So again, we'll see more of this at Duo.
You won't go back and
Charles,
that.
Sorry about that. Charles doesn't realize he's on my webinar for some reason. Yeah. And so please. Again, we'll do these webinars on the monthly.
The reason is because
take a look at our events
you have to
page.
click more to see the third and the fourth one.
So on that, we'll go ahead and end this. And thanks everybody for attending. Appreciate it.